when Askeladd came to the king's court, the princess asked if it were true if he had a pair of scissors that were thus and so, and if he would sell them. Well, he certainly did have a pair of scissors like that, said Askeladd, but he did not want to sell them. And then he took the scissors out of his pocket and clipped in the air with them so that the pieces of silk and bits of velvet flew about her ears. Well, you'll just have to sell them to me, said the king's daughter. You can ask whatever you like for them, but I must have them. No, he would not sell them at any price. But, for he could never get another pair of scissors like this again, he said. But, as they stood there bargaining for the scissors, the king's daughter took a better look at Askeladd. And like the innkeeper's wives, she thought she had never seen a handsomer man before. Then she started bargaining for the scissors again and begged and pleaded with Askeladd to sell them. He could ask for as many hundreds of thalers as he liked. But it did not matter as long as she got the scissors. No, I'm not going to sell them, insisted Askeladd. But if it's the same to me, I can lie on the floor of the princess's bedchamber tonight, right by the door. She could have the scissors. I won't do her any harm. And if she's afraid, she can have 2 men stand guard inside the chamber. Yes, well, that certainly could be arranged, thought the king's daughter. As long as she got the scissors, she was satisfied. So Askeladd then lay on the floor in the princess's bedchamber during the night, and 2 men stood guard. But the princess did not sleep very much, for every so often she thought she had to open her eyes and peek at Askeladd again. And this kept up all night. Scarcely had she closed her eyes before she had to peek over at him again. So handsome she thought he was. Well, in the morning, Askeladd was rowed back out to the tramps' island again. But when the guards came with the porridge scrapings and bottles of whey, no one would so much as taste on that day either. The guards were even more surprised at this, but one of them managed to find out that the boy who had the pair of scissors also owned a cloth. And he had only but to spread it out, and it served up all the best things to eat that one could ask for. When the guard came back to the king's court, it was not too long before he was told about this too. At the king's court, there's never been anything like the roast meat and cream porridge that cloth serves up. So when the princess heard this, she went to the king again and told and begged and pleaded for such a long time that at last he had to send out to the island for the Askeladd, the owner of the cloth. And when Askeladd came to the castle again, the king's daughter just had to get the cloth from him and promised anything under the sun. But Askeladd once again insisted he would not sell at any price. But if I can sit on a stool beside the bed in the princess's chamber tonight, she shall have my cloth, said the boy. I certainly won't do her any harm. But if she's afraid, she can have 4 men standing guard. Well, when the princess agreed to this, and 4 men stood guard. But if she had not slept very much the night before, she certainly slept even less that night. She could hardly shut her eyes. She had to lie and gaze at the handsome boy the whole night through. And even though she did not think the night was long enough, in the morning Askeladd was rowed out to the tramps' island again. And it was certainly against the princess's will, for she was so fond of the boy already. But there was no use asking, he had to go out there again. Now when the guards came with the porridge and scrapings and whey, which the tramps were to have for food, not one of them would touch a bite of what the king had sent. Nor were the guards any too surprised about that either, for they did think it strange that none of the tramps was thirsty. So then one of the king's men managed to find out that the fellow who owned the scissors and the cloth also had a barrel tap too. And it was such that he would but just as give the tap a twist, and he had the finest things to drink imaginable, both ale and mead and wine and spirits. So when the guards came back to the castle, he could not but keep his mouth shut any better than the first time. He told everyone he met about the barrel tap and how easy it was to get all manner of things to drink from it. Nothing like that ale and mead has ever been tasted at the king's court, he said. It's sweeter than both honey and syrup. Well, when the king's daughter heard that, she wanted to get hold of the barrel tap at once. And she certainly had nothing against bargaining with the one who owned it either. So she went to the king again and asked him to send out to the tramps' island for the young fellow who owned the scissors and the cloth, for he still had something even better, she said. And when the king heard it was a barrel tap that poured out the best ale and wine that one could wish for, just by giving the tap a twist, it certainly did not take him long to send for the boy, I dare say. Well, when Askeladd came up to the castle, the princess asked if it were true that he had a barrel tap that was thus and so. Well, yes, it was in his vest pocket, said Askeladd. But when the king's daughter wanted to buy it at any price, Askeladd said, just as on the other two times, that he would not sell it at all, even if the princess offered him half the kingdom for it. But if it's all the same to me, said Askeladd, if I can but lie on the edge of the princess's bed, on top of the bedclothes, she shall have my barrel tap. I won't do her any harm, but if she's afraid, she can have 8 men stand guard in the bedchamber. Oh, no, that was not needed, thought the princess, as she well knew him by that time. And so Askeladd lay on top of the bedclothes beside the princess during the night. And there was even less sleep that night. She could not shut an eye. The whole time she had to lie there and gaze at Askeladd, who lay beside her on the edge of the bed. And when she got up in the morning, and they were going to row Askeladd out to the tramps' island, she told him to wait. And then she ran to the king and asked him so very sweetly if she could not have Askeladd, for she loved him so much that if she did not get him, she did not want to live, she said. Why, of course you can have him if you really must, said the king. Anyone who has such things as this is just as rich as you or I. Then Askeladd, he got the princess and half the kingdom. And he would get the other half when the king died. And so everything turned out all right. But his 2 brothers, who had always treated him badly, he had them put out on the tramps' island. And there they can stay until they find out who is better off. The one whose pockets are always full of money, or the one who is loved by womankind, said Askeladd. And then I dare say it did not take much to reach down in their pockets and jingle their money out there on this island. And if Askeladd had not taken them off the island, they are still there eating cold porridge scrapings and whey to this very day. What's up?